Welcome everybody, a new transmission of the Fair Virtual Book Fair USA. Today we are going to present a poetry reading by Gerard Robledo from USA. Presenter Libertad Betancourt. Go ahead, please, Libertad.
Thank you so much, my angel, this afternoon and every day. That is Sandra Vasquez. I am so excited to be here again, and don't go because I have two more presentations, and one of them is a musical presentation. You have to be here, Gerard, in the transmission, in your home or wherever you are. And I have to, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all around the world. Why all around the world? Because this fair is very popular. We are growing up all the time. All presentations are fantastic. We have many writers, poets, artists in different shapes, and we present many categories. And today, I have to say thank you so much, Cesar Salvatierra and Alan Morales. They are our co-founders, Gerard. And I have to tell you that this is the 8th virtual book fair. The first was in Peru, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, Spain, Italy, United Kingdom, and now we are in our home, United States. This is our celebration. Qué chido, sí, señor. And I'm so happy that I know you are so busy and you accept to be with us. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. This is wonderful. And I'm so very happy and honored to be a part of this, the 8th celebration of it, and be all over the world. So this is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again, Libertad.
Thank you. Thank you. The honor is for me, is for us, is for the world, poetry world. Today we are going to have a reading, poetry reading by Gerard. Gerard.
Gerard.
Gerard. Oh, okay. Gerard. By G. By Gerardo.
Gerardo. Sale más fácil.
Gerardo. Natural for me. And I had the opportunity to know you in a festival, was Versos Frontera, organized by Octavio Quintanilla, who is our poet laureate. From San Antonio, right?
San Antonio Poet Laureate, yeah. His tenure as San Antonio Poet Laureate ended last year, and we have a new Poet Laureate, and Andrea Vocab Sanders. But Octavio is a Poet Laureate, and I've known him for a few years now, since he first moved to San Antonio from the Valley, from South Texas. So, he's a great guy, and he's always tried to include me into a lot of these events, and I'm really grateful for it. That I'm able to perform my work and still maintain our big community of poetry in San Antonio. It's a wonderful, huge poetry community here in the city.
And I have a surprise for you.
Okay. Oh, no.
No. It's just, I'm going to tell you. We are organizing, I organized a reunion, a special presentation with 4 poet laureates this Saturday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's Sunday. This Sunday is going to be, I think, at 6 or 7 p.m. New York time. And we are going to have 4. And I'm going to share with you later the banner, and you can see which poet laureates. I think one is from McAllen, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Priscilla, and Octavio.
Okay. Yeah. Eduardo Vidaurre is the one from the.
No, it's just 4 people. Yeah, but next fair we are going to do it. Okay, now I want to listen.
Well, first, I want to apologize because I know there's probably a lot of background noise. I'm not in my home. My internet went down right before we had this go down, and so I came to a friend who owns a bar, and they have internet, so I'm here. So there's a few patrons in here. They're going to get to hear me read poetry and hear me talking. But at the same time, I know that there's probably some background noise. You'll hear people having laughed. So please, I hope you can put up with it today, and anybody else watching. It's not too bad.
No, it's perfect. I was in charge of the opening of the fair in the United States, and I did it in a cafeteria in a really luxury hotel here in the United States. And in Argentina, with the closing was in the middle of a natural park. I don't remember the name. Is Big Bend National Park.
Oh yeah.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
Yeah,
We love open places. Welcome.
fantastic,
Gerardo, I want to ask you, what do you write? Are poems, or do you have short stories, narrative, or what do you have in your material?
Lyrical poetry, narrative-driven poetry. So there's always stories. Everything I write about is related to me and my life and my upbringing, and to issues with race and living in Texas and growing up with like, soy güero. Soy mi familia de México. Yo nací aquí en San Antonio, ¿verdad? Pero también que soy muy güero in San Antonio. When you're güero, people think you're white, and especially since I don't speak Spanish as often as I used to, and so I write about all of these things. My grandfather estaba muy moreno, and his wife, una güera, rubia también. And so, but she was from Mexico también, eran mexicanos. So I watched them growing up here, when I was growing up here, and the racism and how they treated my grandmother more like an American, and they treated my grandfather badly. And then I had, my father died when I was very little, I was about 3. So my mom raised me and my brothers, and my mom was an alcoholic. And so I was kind of raised by that. And my work really is about all these sorts of things that have made me who I am. Now, the other part of that is that I'm also a father. I'm a single father. I have custody of my daughter. And in Texas, that's a rarity. So I've been raising her when I was a student. I was a college student, and I was raising her alone. And, I try to like not be like my families, and not be like all the bad things, all the good things, right? Like I'm like a mom in so many ways. I took all the stuff my grandmother gave me and taught me, and I do that. But so my work has to do a lot with that, and with my daughter, who's also biracial, right? So her mom is white. And so how do we deal with that? Those issues that, at her mom's house, there'll be talk about racism and sort of her grandparents on that side were Republican and voted for Donald Trump. And my daughter, of course, was raised with me. And so anyway, the work kind of goes through all that and all these sorts of the realities of what it is to live a life, not just the good stuff where we write about tortillas and tacos y las manos de mi abuela y algo así. Those things are wonderful, but there's another side to it, the reality of struggling, and what it is to be a parent when you're alone, and what that really looks like when you have to give up a lot of other things in life, or you've grown up with a lot of struggling, and then you try to raise a child to also be aware and not ignore the past. So I know that it's kind of a lot there, but really my work, it sort of encompasses all of this. And then, being, as I said, güero, like where does that come from? And in San Antonio, it's either your güero or your family is Spanish for some reason. Everybody thinks you're Spanish, which is bullshit. It's not, right? And because my father was from San Luis Potosí, and so we sort of, I kind of delve into this idea of these myths of what it is and what is it that we really want to own about being Mexican and Mexican American in this country, and how do we move forward with that? So but it's all through poetry, realistically, for me. So.
Wow, I'm impressed because I hear you reading in that festival, and I love your poetry. But now I'm very interested because I didn't know about the origin, your inspiration, and I would like to hear something. Could you read us a little, share with us?
Yeah, I'll start with this one poem. It's kind of a longer one, but I think it kind of says almost everything. And so this is a newer work that I have here. It's the first time anybody's going to hear this. So it's titled Use Every Part of the Animal. Okay. I once admired a famous dead chef who traveled to the brave coast of Spain, ate from the bully, then with a crowd, murdered a filthy white pig in an annual celebration of family. Before they began, a priest led a prayer. Following the amen, he rallied, Kill the pig, kill the pig, kill the pig. First, they got the pig drunk to relax its muscles, made it docile, tenderizing the flesh in the process leading to death. Before being penetrated with an 8-inch blade, its throat slapped with handfuls of water. El Cerdo cried in terror as several men held it down. One opened its hole. Its screams raised in pitch, then abruptly ceased to exist, as if an off switch had been flipped in shock. The blood filled a basin, a fapping sound, a wet hand thrown against cold skin to make morcilla and fritango de sangre. This unnerving sound resembled my child's birth, and one came out with her and the placenta. In some cultures, it's a cannibalistic delicacy, something I wanted to see, the afterbirth. But a nurse detracted my attention to cut the umbilical cord. There, my gaze pulled to ignore the cleanup and erasure of a moment too gruesome for most to witness without convulsing. Like the children who turned away from the hemorrhaging pig, little faces nestled into their mothers' bellies, minus one mother palming her boy's chin, forcing the gruesome scene on him. Eres hombre, mouthed. The same as my mother did when she fingered my cheek, praised the blessing of my white skin's journey from Spain to Mexico with my father's family, to San Luis, the city they helped found and establish. One of the exaggerations about him placed in my ear, proudly. My brother's brown lips mimicked these phrases to anyone who dared question our origins before stating our father was born in Mexico. I recited the same lines until 30 in San Antonio. Everyone's family originally came from Spain. I later learned San Luis was a French settlement named for the Catholic King of France. Still, I refused to tell my brothers what they can find on Google. My mother kept cooking when I told her. She said, pass the salt, then burnt the pork chops in an oversized pan. A fistful of hay was then ignited in a man's hands. A torch burned the swine's blonde hair from its body. It's most efficient, but still must be followed with a straight razor, wine, and song before being strung up and disemboweled. My grandmother said, if you want to know your body, you have to kill a pig. It's the same. Everything is in the same place inside. She also said that we must use every part of the animal. Its skin, feet, and entrails feed the mass. Nothing wasted. Muscles, cartilage, and knuckles consumed. Their wives and daughters cooked blood and potatoes, blood and bread, its body and wine devoured, ribs and belly smoked, its shoulders and legs preserved in salt, prosciutto, a delicacy my neighbors now covet. The Marrano's blood filling the Spanish fingerprints as they make sausage and then chortle. A cannibal once said pigs taste like humans, only less bitter, before being led to his death. He also said, cut the stress. It'll cause dark, discolored meat. You can see the stress in the meat. No one likes dark flesh. The chef didn't promote cruelty, just knowledge, so people can feel free to decide what to do with their pigs. Okay.
Wow. It's quite intense.
Yeah. That was the longest one I'll be reading today, but yeah,
Wow.
there's a lot in there.
When I was listening you, I was thinking that it's very difficult. Many people try to copy the style of different writers, the oldest writers, no,
Yes.
los antiguos, the how do you say los antiguos?
Yeah, and you know, old historical writers,
Yeah,
ancient
exactly.
writers, and yeah, the past.
And when you have when we walk one step is when we create something. And when I was listening you, and this is new poetry, and it's a very different style of poetry that we listen around us. It's something new. It's creativity, and I had the opportunity in the festival of Octavio Quintanilla. Some of the writers, they have the same style of you. It's a new generation, right? How do you call this kind of poetry?
Well, it's just it's a narrative, lyrical poetry. But I've decided I wanted to push away from a lot of sounding like others and trying to make sure that I sounded more like myself, and that I'm considering it more as truly an art form of trying to follow where the poem is supposed to go, and not me make it sound like something, and not force it to be contained. So I mean, I don't know what the exact name would be on this, but it really is like if I have a line, and I all of a sudden I think of, you know, I was starting off writing about this chef, and he's in Spain, and everything I was watching, and then I immediately thought of like my family, and I thought of, you know, all these stories and that are tied in there. So of course they that's where they went. You know? So instead of forcing it to be about one thing, it is about all this stuff, right? It's about my family, and it is about my father, and all these other things, but it's in a much bigger way of getting there. Or I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else to really say on that right now. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I want to read a little about you because I want people to know about you. And it's Gerardo Robledo. I'm insisting in Spanish. He's a Latino social justice poet from San Antonio. He holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of Texas at El Paso, and teaches creative writing and Mexican American literature at San Antonio College. His Spanish language poetry translations, poetry, and books reviews have appeared in Voices de la Luna, the Texas Poetry Calendar, the Texas Observer, Pilgrimage, The Time Itself, Utrecht, a protest anthology, yes, for injustice in a post 9/11 world, and Poetry Vibe, among others. He was inducted into the San Antonio Poetry Archives at Palo Alto College, in a Macondo Writers Workshop Fellow, and recipients of the 2020 Eduardo Corral Emerging Latin Writers Mentorship. Oh, wow.
That's
You were in front of me. We have one day and we didn't talk. Why? What happened? I was sleeping or what?
we spoke a little bit. I think I was going to read, and that's what it was. When I'm if I have a reading coming up, and I'll be having a drink, and I'm just kind of focused on what I need to do, and I'm always thinking about what I need to change on there. So, I keep quiet sometimes. You know, I wish we had all had more time when we were down there to hang out more and read, but now we can, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, you can read a little more. You have time.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, let me pull up another poem that I have here, and this is kind of along those same lines of what. So I'll say this much too. Like, a lot of the work is a lot of times, you know, we want to, as you said before, we want to sound like somebody else, or we want to make sure we're mentioning certain things. And when the work here has to do with a lot of identity, and what does it mean to be Mexican American, and you know, like the guilt of that comes with between our culture, and you know, like how we look, and or what we sound like, and or whether or not we say certain things because someone feels we should in our work. So I tried to at least be honest to who I am and how I was raised. So that's where the stories will be. So this one, though, it's a short sequence piece with about 5 small pieces in it, and it's called "Stories Your Mother Tells Your Fiance." So let's see here. He used to get so red and upset when his brothers would say he was adopted. He'd cry in my stomach and not believe me because he was so güerito. And they weren't. He wanted to be like them badly. I held him closer than them. His cheeks got pinker when I just laughed at his tiny anger. It's so cute when they're little, too. When he was first born, I used to cover him up all the way to the face because he was so white. I didn't want anybody to see him. Then my sister removed the silk blanket. Her question cleared the room of dinner chatter. What happened here? ¿Qué güerito? I had to remind her, his father is Spanish. 3. He gets upset that I won't speak to his daughter in Spanish, but he doesn't understand. It's the same reason I didn't want to teach them. I just don't want them to go through the same thing I did. He just doesn't understand. They're better off not knowing the past and what we all went through. I tried, before.
Yeah,
I tried to take him to Mexico once so his grandparents could see him. But his father said, no, he belongs here. 5. He was just different than his brothers, smarter, you know. I made sure to read to him and never worried. I just knew his life would be better, and it is. That's it. So, with that work, I think it's no secret that, in Mexico and even here in the United States, si eres güero, te sale mejor. Es como la gente piensa, ¿verdad? That it opens up doors and there's opportunities.
More opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But it's true. It's true.
It is true, yes. Because in Mexico, we have a caste system. Yeah. And it is true. There's also other sides to it, too, where then we get, like we sit in this space where we're treated and accepted by white America, but then we're also rejected because at the exact same time, hablo español, soy mexicano, ¿verdad? There's still a reminder of that. And then nuestra raza también nos trata mal porque pues eres güero, eres gringo, crees que eres gringo, alguien así. And so we get rejected at the same time. And so the idea of colorism is a topic that we don't talk about all that much, and though we do now a little bit more. But there are always sides to it, there are positives and negatives. And so part of the rest of my work is writing is like writing as like a single light-skinned Mexican father, and like what has that done to guide me to ensure how I interact with the world, the work I create, and how I raise my daughter to understand that. Because not only is my daughter biracial and half, she's half white and half Mexican, but she looks a heck of a lot like me. She doesn't have blonde hair, but she navigates several spaces and questions where she sits into that. She used to say, I'm Mexican, Daddy, I'm Mexican, and now she's 12. And that phrase does not always come out of her mouth anymore, right? So how do we talk about this more? And so this is why I write so much where we're talking about, like, yes, it's appreciated and coveted, but then it's also judged within a family, and anyway, so that's kind of what was happening with that work right there.
Wow, great. And I want to ask you, because we can feel, or I don't know for everybody, but I can feel your feelings in all your words. And my question is, pandemic, it is very complicated. We were in a, how do you say, ruleta, and a wheel, Ferris wheel, or I don't know, how do you say in English?
Yes.
¿Cómo se dice?
Yes.
Ruleta, rueda de la fortuna. Wheel,
Ferris wheel, yeah, Ferris wheel.
Exactly.
Ferris wheel, yeah.
And
we are,
yeah. Exactly, and we are in that feeling. Sometimes we are happy, we want to cry, we are excited, anxious. I don't know, how do you feel? My question is, did you write something? Silence, please.
I'm sorry, what was that? Did I write what?
Sorry, somebody put a paper bag in my table and it's really noisy.
Okay, it's
and
okay.
My question is, did you write something about that? Because your poetry are feelings.
I did write, I wrote something, I can read something I did write during the pandemic. This was fairly recent, and so there was a conversation I was having with a friend about like intimacy and relationships and what does that do when we're around each other all the time. And, I was home with my daughter, right? And we've had a great relationship our entire life because it's just been me and her, right? But we found it where we were getting on each other's nerves, or I was getting on her nerves, right? And she wanted to be at her mother's house more, but she was also becoming 12 and starting to go through puberty. And then, so there was a fear, of like what happens next, because she wanted to leave. She never wanted to leave. She hated leaving to go to her mom's house. And all of a sudden she's asking to go. And this was kind of part of the consequence of the pandemic. It built a stronger relationship for her and her mother, which is a great thing. I'm very happy for that. But at the same time, it pulled away from ours. And so I'm watching a child grow up even more and quickly, because she was sort of left home with her thoughts, and so was I, a little bit more often than normal. I'm not at work, I'm working from home. She's not at school, she's doing school from home, and both of us are left with our thoughts. So I started writing some of that, really, because I've been working on a lot of these pieces, but this was one that was written specifically during this time, not that long ago, and where I'm just, I can't leave the house. You walk out on the back balcony and that's it, and you're there all day. So if you want, I can read this last poem.
Of course.
Part of it. So it's called Lighthouses.
I wanted to ask you more.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. If you want, let's continue that. That's fine. That's fine. But please go ahead. Yes. Let's continue on. Ask me more.
No. Ask him. Read more is what I want to tell you. Read more.
Okay. So yeah, this is Lighthouses. Look, just outside my fingernails, the lights in the distance, passing cars on the highway, a chain of small lighthouses, a measure of proximity to safety, turning and fleeting from my balcony, alone on this Saturday night. Through the sprouting leaves of spring, their gleam suspends the cruelest times. Again, my daughter's gone, 7 years, and running on the weekend rotation inside our apartment. It's already Texas warm. It smells moldy and smoky, like a motel, like the leather binding of a Gideon's Bible, and not like my home. Just over my pulse and the hawking circulation of blood in my ear are the sounds of the wooden floor creaking under my heels, and the tinny music cracking my phone with the voice of a 40-year dead singer. It isn't getting better. Ambitions are low, and we're taking different roads into the night. Can you hear the disconnection? It's a click and slink of two metal pieces unclasping from each other, separating the safety belt to make space for herself. She fills a wine glass with strawberry lemonade and sparkling water. The pink liquid swirls and its pulp settles to the floor of her glass. Her pour echoes mine, just without the alcohol or the shakes. From the distance to her bedroom, I hear the approaching clip-clopping of heels and incoherent teen chatter. Is it unsettling? Or is it that I don't want my construction paper likeness to fall apart under the scrutiny of its words? Best daddy ever. Did you know pouring alcohol over colored paper will bleed the ink and make beautiful works of alcohol art, but will also destroy the paper in the process. So paper, now as fragile as gold leaf. This process as precious as making a child in another country. But it's still nothing when I remember I'm not an immigrant mother, just another single parent trying. Okay.
No words. I'm flying. Oh, you are a real poet. You are a real poet. And you have to translate your poems to Spanish. because people that they
Eventually.
don't speak Spanish, they deserve to know your art, your artwork.
I appreciate that. Yeah, eventually, well, after I get the manuscript out, that's important, which I'm working on. Hope to have it done by the end of the year, but we'll see what happens. It's been busy. I thought I'd have free time, and stuff like this keeps happening where I have to leave my house. I'm at a bar doing a poetry reading, which I should be at home. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this year.
Oh, thank you. I cannot imagine the time passed really quickly.
Yeah, it
30
did.
minutes. I know the noise, don't worry. We understand it's time that people is really busy. It's for the dinner time.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy, really excited. I really appreciate that you took the time. I know you broke your
My foot.
I don't know, your foot,
My
right?
foot. Yeah, I broke the bone right here in my foot. So
And you are here. Thank you for the effort. Thank you. But we
everything for
push you.
poetry.
Te empujamos a salir de tu casa. We push you.
Todo para la poesía, ¿verdad? Todo poder para el poesía.
Sí,
Sí.
sí, gracias.
Bueno, muchas gracias a tenerme y a invitarme a participar aquí con todos ustedes en todas partes del mundo. So I really appreciate it. I'm glad that I was able to share these new works and hopefully people will get to know who I am and that this wonderful poetry reading gets more exposure and we can keep promoting it so we can continue on to 9 years and 10 years, right? And further on. All right. Well, thank you again, Libertad. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. We started with 250 writers and público, los exponentes. And now we have in United Kingdom 5,000 people in 17 days. Could you imagine? The opening was the last Friday and 1,600 people, they saw the opening. We have a big audience.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this fantastic afternoon. Thank you so much, Sandra Vasquez. Don't go. I'm going to be here, and I hope you see me in Facebook, Gerardo.
I will.
Quédate, no te vayas. Tómate tu cervecita y síguenos viendo en un rato más. Thank you so much. A big hug and congratulations.
Thank you.
You are a great dad. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Bye.